Maharaj needs no introduction, as he has touched each one of our hearts. However, for the benefit of those that are not familiar, I will just read a short bibliography. Originally from New Zealand, Bhakti Chaitanya Swami Maharaj joined the Hare Krishna movement in London early in 1973, and later in that year was initiated by Srila Prabhupada. 11 years later, in Mayapur, he received the order of sannyasi. Amongst the many services that Maharaj has been faithfully engaged in includes serving in the Bhaktivedanta Food Trust and food distribution, serving as temple president, fundraising, regional secretary, and outreach programs. Although his permanent base is Durban, he is known to travel both internationally and locally, spreading Krishna consciousness in an accessible way. After joining the GBC in 1998, Maharaj's assignments have included many countries, such as Angola, Lesotho, etc., and also acting as co-GBC for many countries, including Mauritius and Northwest Russia. He has served as chairman and vice chairman of the GBC. His special interests include film, photography, and parikram, and the splendid outcome of these interests can be seen in the documentaries of holy pilgrimages in India and festivals around the world, and in books such as Vrindavan, the Playground of God, and Traveling in the Service of Srila Prabhupada, volumes 1, 2, and 3. So Maharaj, from the entire congregation of Srila Prabhupada Prema Namahatta, guests and well-wishers, we would like to take this opportunity to welcome you and thank you for being with us today. His Holiness Bhakti Chaitanya Swami Maharaj ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.
What excellent MCs. They're just first class. Thank you. Well, one thing I can say about the biography, there is, it's not your fault in the slightest, but there's just, because it's the same biography that a number of others use. I took sannyas not 11 years after joining ISKCON. I joined, it was actually January the 6th, 1973. So I didn't take sannyas in 1984. It was 1994, just for, the sake of detail. But otherwise, thank you. You really did well. I was very pleasantly surprised. So, but anyway, Hare Krishna, everyone. Oops. It's a bit crazy, isn't it? Right, so, well, I guess let me just chant Jai Radha Madhava, and then I see we have questions. It looks like questions. I guess I should try and answer at least some of these questions. Let's have a look. How many have we got? Okay, 20 questions. So is that okay? As an idea, we'll just sing Jai Radha Madhava, and then I'll answer the questions. Or maybe I can just say a couple of words about what? Should have told that, maybe.
It means the same.
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari
Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari
Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari
Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari
Yashodanandana Raja Janaranjana
Yashodanandana Raja Janaranjana
Yashodanandana Raja Janaranjana
Yashodanandana Raja Janaranjana
Yamunatira Vanachale
Yamunatira Vanachari
Yamunatira Vanachale
Yamunatira Vanachari
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari
Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari
Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari
Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari
Yashodanandana Raja Janaranjana
Yashodanandana Raja Janaranjana
Yashodanandana Raja Janaranjana
Yashodanandana Raja Janaranjana
Yamunatira Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Yes, devotees. Well, let me just say a couple of words to start off with. First, let me say something a little bit, just briefly about Srila Prabhupada. I don't think any of you here, well, I don't know, but I don't think any of you actually saw Prabhupada when he was here, 75? No? Okay. I mean, it doesn't really, it's not that it doesn't matter at all, but it's not like a big thing. But the thing is, what is a big thing, is that we all have a relationship with Srila Prabhupada. Because here we are, we're in Prabhupada's movement, and it's not my movement, it's not Dayal Chaitanya Prabhu's movement, it's Prabhupada's movement. And we're all members of it. Yeah, we're all members of it, and we all have a relationship with Srila Prabhupada. We might not be so aware of it, of the relationship and what it is and how it works, but we all have a relationship with Srila Prabhupada. And it's very important, actually. Really important, because he's a great transcendental personality. He's no longer physically with us, of course, but he's with us in spirit, literally. And if we sort of open our hearts to him, then he will enter our hearts and we'll find, gosh, we're feeling the presence of Prabhupada, and it's very nice. Last night, I don't know, were any of you there last night in the temple? You were there, and you were there, right? But I gave a couple of examples, mentioned a couple of things which Prabhupada had said. The first one was early, very early, I mean in the movement, like probably 1967, or might even have been 66, but something like that, right in the early days. Prabhupada was giving classes in 26 Second Avenue in New York. And Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and people were coming. So there was one lady who was there, and Prabhupada giving a class. He had talked about how Krishna is with us, and if we remember Krishna, if we focus our minds on Krishna, then later, or at the end of this life, we'll go to Krishna. And that means eternal life, full of bliss and full of knowledge, in the personal, direct association of Lord Krishna himself. So this one lady asked a question that, now you've said like this, but if we remember you, then will it have the same effect? Or what effect will it have? Or will it have the same effect? In other words, will we go back to Godhead at the end of this life? And Srila Prabhupada just thought momentarily, I mean just for a few seconds, and then he smiled. And Prabhupada said yes, it will have the same effect. So like this, we should practice. We need to practice thinking of Prabhupada, remembering Prabhupada. And yes, then we'll go to Prabhupada, and he's with Krishna, so we'll go to Krishna. So that was one thing. Really nice thing. And the second was that one devotee, lady, asked Prabhupada that, are your disciples, or is a disciple, when someone is a disciple of yours, are you in their heart? Are you, Prabhupada, in the heart of the disciple? And Srila Prabhupada answered, yes, if you let me in. Now what does that mean, let me in? Well, it basically, it's fairly simple actually. The first step is we just have to regularly remember Prabhupada. Of course, in order to remember Prabhupada, or for that matter, remember Krishna, or Lord Chaitanya, or Lord Nityananda, or just remember anyone, you have to have some information, you have to know something about the person. If I tell you that, well, like Acharyavan Prabhu here is assisting me, and he's from Russia, and well, if I say to you that in what, Syktyvkar, you're in Syktyvkar, right?
Arkhangelsk.
Arkhangelsk. Now, you may not have heard of Arkhangelsk before. If I say, there is a man in Arkhangelsk named, very common Russian name, Sergei. Very common. And I want you to remember him. Think about him. But that's all you know. You don't know who is this person, and what sort of person, and what age, and what he does, and what he is interested in, and just all you know is there's this fellow, a human being, in this to you unknown city, and his name is Sergei, and that's it, and we want you to remember him. So you can't, not in any meaningful way really at all. But if you know persons like this and like that, and they're this age, and they have this occupation, and these interests, and they have, a family, and so many children who are these ages, and who are like this and that, and then you can start remembering the person and thinking about them. So in this case, in order to remember Srila Prabhupada, of course we know basic things, but to really get into more detail, we need to read the biographies of Prabhupada, because there's so much personal information there. It's amazing. The last biography that I read most recently was the biography done by Giriraj Maharaj about Prabhupada in Bombay or Mumbai, and what Prabhupada did to secure the property. Oh, what a story. It's amazing. And it really reveals so much about Prabhupada as a person, his feelings and his desires and so on. So if we want to remember Prabhupada, on a regular basis, and think of Prabhupada, then we should read those biographies, and they will just help us tremendously to really get to know Prabhupada, instead of being, great devotee who's established ISKCON and wrote the books and did this and that. Just some very basic and general information, but we can really get to understand Prabhupada as a person. Yeah, because he was not just, you might say, like a Krishna conscious machine, on automatic pilot. He just functioned, like a pure devotee, and that was it, sort of spontaneously. But is a person with all sorts of personal characteristics, likes and dislikes and attitudes and moods and like that. Yeah, and I'll go into the questions in a minute. Let me just tell you another little Prabhupada story. Prabhupada was there in Mumbai, and he was in his room or rooms, and with a group of people, and he was speaking, giving like you could say a class to maybe 10 people, just a small group in his personal quarters. And who should walk in but one laborer? If you've spent time in India, you'd know what the laborers look like. That normally they just have a gamsha around their waist and, very crude clothes and they work hard, so generally there's some dirt on them and like this. So this fellow walked in with a bunch of flowers and just put them down in front of Prabhupada. Didn't say a word, just put them down, turned around and walked out. And that was it. And Srila Prabhupada became stunned. He just was sort of immobilized. And he didn't say anything for, a good few seconds, not just a couple of seconds, but maybe like a quarter of a minute or even half a minute. He didn't say anything. And when he did say something, he was in a very emotional state. That just see, this person, he doesn't know me, but he heard that there's a saintly person here. So he just took some flowers from the side of the road and just brought them and gave them and went. Yes, and Prabhupada said, I am very deeply moved, and tears came from his eyes, that this person would just do this out of the blue. So, we should, in order to appreciate Prabhupada more and understand him more, of course, we should read the biographies. They will really help. And in a sense, they it's like turning the lights on, if you know what I mean. You walk into a dark room, and then someone turns the lights on, it's like, wow, yeah, suddenly there's this bright light. So these biographies are like that, and they're very, reading them is very rewarding and educational, and it helps, not just helps, but it really does establish relationship between us and Prabhupada. And instead of just being sort of, as some people say, the big Swami, he's now a person, very great devotee, but a real person and kind of, intricate type of nature. So anyway, there you go, you can think about it. Another thing you can think about, at least the young ones. How old are you, Kartik? 23? Okay. So, on Friday night, wasn't it? Friday night, yeah. In the Radharanath temple, we had a meeting of the what is it, ISKCON Durban Youth Group. I think that's what it's called. ISKCON Durban Youth Group, IDYG. And Kartik was there. And not a large number of other young people, but there was something like 10 of them were there. And, I found it nice. How did you find it? I think it's really nice, actually, because let's face it, I'm probably, I don't know, you may be older than me, I'm not sure. What's your age? Undisclosed. What? How old are you? 23. 23? Okay. I'm older than you then. I'm getting used to being the oldest person in gatherings. I used to be the youngest person way back. I'm getting used to being the oldest person. But us oldies are sort of different in certain important ways from the youngsters. And it's nice, birds of a feather flocking together. It's nice if young people, young devotees, can get together with other young devotees and sort of share together in Krishna consciousness in that context. Yeah. Is that okay? Is that okay? Just a suggestion. A youth. I was there. I guess I'm a youth. I'm a senior youth. I'm only 74. Still young. So, okay, I'll go on into these questions, 20 questions. And what is the time, actually? Okay, let's see how we can get through these 20 questions. How can we not be attached to our family members when we have supported, loved, and cared for them throughout our lives? Well, we don't really, to not be attached to a person who's not nice is probably a good idea. If someone's not nice, then, best to not really deal with them. Or, if it's a family member who's really not nice to you, then at least, if you have to deal with them, at least keep it to a minimum so you don't get disturbed by them not being nice. But otherwise, if your family members are nice, or say nice enough, then we should be happy to associate with them, particularly if they're devotees. Even if they're not devotees, but they're not opposed to our involvement in Krishna consciousness, and they let us do what we feel we want to do, then that's also nice. That's also nice. And we should try how to not be attached. We should see them as devotees, or as spirit souls, or eternal servants of Krishna. And if they're not devotees, we should just still see them that this is what they really are, even though they don't know. And we should try and help them. If nothing else, we should try and give them prasadam. If they're men, ladies, I'm sure you know this, the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. And you know what? It's not just some folk saying, it's true. There's a real lot of truth in it. But, if they're not nice, that's a problem, isn't it? If some family member or members are just not nice, and they give you a hard time, well, that's an impetus to not be too attached to them, not really be too involved with them beyond what you need to do. But otherwise, if they're nice, there's one story I read, like a devotee presented from his own life. He was from some part of southern Europe, it may have been Serbia, that area, kind of somewhere near Greece, down that side of Europe. And this young man, he's a devotee, and he was living with his parents, but his father was not nice. He really wasn't nice. He would make comments about Krishna consciousness and, oh, what do you think you're doing, and all that sort of thing, and he really wasn't nice. But the devotee carried on living with them. But then he noticed over a period of a couple of years, his father's attitude changed in the sense that he was making comments less, and then he stopped making comments, and he just let the devotee's son just carry on doing Krishna consciousness as he liked. One day, the devotee who was working, for some reason or other, he had to come home in the middle of the day to do something or get something. So he came back and just unannounced, he didn't say, look, I'm coming in. He just walked in and just walked into the lounge, and what did he see? His father was sitting there with a bead bag on his hand, chanting japa. Yeah. And he said to his father, well, what happened? You didn't tell me that you've become a devotee. Why didn't you tell me? And the father said, I was just so embarrassed that I'd mistreated you for those years. I just felt so bad. I just couldn't bring myself to tell you, but here I am. Yes. So, if you are nice to your family members, even if they're not devotees, but particularly if they're sort of okay with you being a devotee or even supportive, then if you are nice, well, even with particularly parents, parents have their expectations of their children and their desires. But if your parents, even if they don't really support you being in Krishna consciousness, if they just see that you're very happy, that you're very nice and pleasant, and you are very helpful, this will influence your parents to think, the truth, that actually you are becoming a better child of theirs through being a Hare Krishna devotee. Because they're watching you every day. They're just watching you all day, every day, basically. And if they see that you're, in their terms, improving very nicely, then many parents have become devotees just through seeing their son or daughter develop in these ways. Yeah. So I think that's what I'd suggest is, at least if your parents are not antagonistic, just be very nice with them. And, it'll probably improve the relationship greatly. So let's see, number 2. If someone commits an act of karma, such as taking another person's life, according to this principle, their life must also be taken, either in this life or the next. why is it that the individual who plays a role in executing the results of this karma in the subsequent life must also experience the karmic consequences? This leads to a cycle of repetition. Well, if I got the message clearly enough, the person who plays a role, I don't know, have I got it? If someone takes another person's life, then their life must also be taken, right? Either in this life or the next, or after some time. True, correct. So why is it that the individual who plays a role in executing the results of this karma?
This instrument.
You mean, I don't know, it's you, is it?
No, it wasn't my question, but I think what they're trying to say is, so that person is, somebody has murdered somebody, killed somebody.
Who does
This
the
time
killing?
It's like they're going to then have to pay for that result. Their karma will
Okay. Well, that's...
the person that will then, in that instance, be responsible for taking that person's life who had killed the person, will then also be subjected to karma in the next.
Okay. Yeah, well, obviously, if you get killed by someone, it was your karma. The person who killed you, or, it doesn't have to be, we don't have to talk about killing. That's not so nice. Yeah. Well, anyway, say punched you in the nose. That's not so nice either, that it's not as bad as killing. Someone walks up to you and punches you in the nose. So it was your karma because you punched someone in the nose before. And that person who punched you in the nose, in a sense, was just an agent of your karma. You get the idea? So, someone might argue, some people try to argue, that therefore the person who did the punching, he's just innocently somehow or other carried along by your karma to get punched in the nose. And he punched you in the nose. So should the puncher, not the puncture, but the puncher, should the puncher get some karma? Well, yeah, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says the intricacies of action are very hard to understand. But the basic point would be, you get your karma. That person acts as an agent, in a sense, for your karma. But that person is also now responsible for punching you, and will get karma for doing that. Not necessarily from you, like in the next life or the next day maybe. You'll ambush him and punch him in the nose. Am I sort of addressing the point, do you feel?
I get a little bit too philosophical. How does the concept of karma balance out with the concept of repentance and forgiveness?
The what?
How does the concept of karma balance out with, how do the two interact? Karma and then repentance and forgiveness.
So you have to speak up, I'm hard of hearing.
You must come closer.
Loud and clear.
Very loud. How does karma and the concept of repentance and forgiveness
I see.
interact? If you have done something wrong in this life
And you repent.
and you obtain forgiveness for that, does that still negate your karma?
Okay, I see. Did you catch that?
Yes.
Someone gets whatever, kills, punches, does something nasty to another person. But then the person repents, right? And apologizes maybe. Well, yeah, I mean, if the person really repents, the person, if they know who you are and can find you, they should come and apologize. Actually, in terms of Vaishnav aparad, the whole subject of offenses to devotees by other devotees, it's considered to be very important to apologize and ask for forgiveness and then get forgiveness from the offended person. And that may nullify, because if you offend in Krishna consciousness, you'll get reactions for that. Yeah. So that may nullify the reactions. But you see, in Krishna consciousness, it's not mechanical. It's up to Krishna. If Krishna feels, okay, you apologized, you repented internally, and then you expressed your repentance and you apologized, and the other person said, forgave you, then Krishna may take it that, okay, that's done, that's enough now. It's all over. And there are going to be no further consequences. But now with karma, it works a little, it's more stringent, put it that way, because Krishna is not really involved in a very personal way in the lives of people who are not his devotees, people who are not interested in him. Krishna is a very reciprocal person, and what would you say, a very kind of a reactive person, that he will not, with someone who's not a devotee, he'll generally not initiate any exchange. Yeah, but if you turn to him, then he'll respond like that. But in this sort of situation, of course, if the person repents and apologizes, of course, if they killed someone, you can't really apologize to the person, can you? But you can apologize to the family. But they would definitely have to take some karma. Even if, say, they didn't kill, but say, I was giving an example just of punching someone. So if they really apologize sincerely and appeal for forgiveness and get forgiveness and somehow extend themselves to the person, then the karma will definitely be reduced. But it's quite like that. They will get good benefit from apologizing. They'll get good karma by apologizing. That good karma will tend to not sort of offset, like offset, bring a balance. Yeah, it'll just be, something good will come his way, but the bad reactions will also come his way, because the laws of karma are very stringent, very strict. There we're talking about not devotees. Is that okay for the time being? Let's move on. How can I increase my faith in chanting the holy names and following my spiritual master's orders? Well, on a certain level, we can give a very simple answer to that. You increase your faith in chanting, particularly by associating with other devotees who have greater faith in chanting and in your spiritual master or their spiritual master. The principle of association is a very powerful principle. So, and they say, whoever you associate with, you become like them. as one of the great laws of life. And it's not just amongst devotees. There's a saying, something to the effect, if you associate with thieves, you become a thief. This is not devotees speaking, it's just people, ordinary people speaking. So if you associate with drunkards or drug takers, or very nice people, if you associate regularly, you will become like who you associate with regularly. So if you associate regularly with devotees who really have great faith in chanting the holy names, and great faith, even if they're not disciples of the same spiritual master as you, but they have great faith in their spiritual master, and just, the idea of having a spiritual master, then you will develop much more faith in chanting the holy names, and you'll develop much more faith in your spiritual master and just the principle of accepting a spiritual master. Yeah, it's very important. You become like those who you associate with, who you accept the association of, means you hear from them and you watch them to try and learn like that. What exactly is Bhishma Panchak, and what advantages does one gain by practicing austerity or increasing one's activity in Krishna consciousness during this period? Well, anyway, Bhishma Panchak is the last 5 days of Kartik, so it'll be coming up shortly. And, the practice is, which frankly I've never done ever, but, some devotees do. Jayapataka Maharaj is a bit of a Bhishma Panchak fan. He always follows it. So what you're meant to do, if you're going to follow Bhishma Panchak, is for the last 5 days of Kartik, you eat only fruit. Only fruit. Yeah. And what are the results? What advantages do you get? Well, it's probably written somewhere, although I've never really taken much of an interest in it. But, if you follow it, not just for the sake of eating fruit, but we generally follow Ekadasi. Why? Because it is considered that eating grains takes more time and energy than eating non-grains. So if you don't eat grains, you should end up with more time for chanting. So therefore it's said about Ekadasi that Ekadasi is the day of Lord Hari, the day of Lord Krishna, because it's meant to free you up, and so you have more time for focusing, particularly on your chanting. Srila Prabhupada on Ekadasis, not Bhishma Panchak, but on Ekadasis, he generally would not eat breakfast. He would just eat lunch, and he might have a snack in the evening, which he would do generally every day. But he wouldn't take breakfast. And he would chant more. Prabhupada chanted quite a lot. Yeah. So if during Bhishma Panchak you're eating fruit, means you don't have to cook, at least if you're normally having to cook for yourself. You're not going to have to cook. Generally, you just eat raw fruit, so you'll have more time. And your body will feel lighter. Generally, your body will feel lighter. And there may be benefits in that. And it may facilitate your chanting. If it facilitates your chanting, that's good. If it's just a matter of being more austere and kind of more strict on yourself as far as eating goes, then it's not going to really give you much of an advantage. Right. Everyone has a unique personality. Do they carry this into the next life? Well, you know, our personality is a manifestation of our subtle body. And when the gross body, physical body, dies, as it inevitably will, but the subtle body does not die. The subtle body never dies. It sort of dissolves when you come to the level of pure devotional service. The subtle body just kind of disintegrates and dissolves. And you develop a spiritual mind, spiritual consciousness. So therefore, when your gross body dies, now off you go into your next life, and you take your subtle body with you. So therefore, whatever state, well, Krishna says, whatever state of being you're in at the end of this life, you'll go to that state without fail. So yes, whatever sort of consciousness you have, whatever state your subtle body is in at the end of this life, you'll take it into your next life. If you go into a human body, now if you go into if your subtle body has really become degraded through sinful activity, and you're going to get an animal body, well, you'll carry that same degraded subtle body into the animal body. But if you're going to get a human body, then of course you're going to be born as a child. But you'll have the same basic sort of psychological characteristics, personality characteristics as a child in your next life. Because the subtle body goes with you. Yeah. I chant daily, however, due to my material commitments, have no time to take the Devotees Association and regularly engage in devotional service. Will this negatively impact my spiritual growth? How about a really simple answer? Yes. Or to, make it more clear. Yes, of course. Because, the thing is this, everything matters. Even something that doesn't seem to matter, everything matters. Maybe just in a small way, but everything matters. So the thing is this, I have a disciple in Lithuania who's just a really amazing, wonderful devotee. He had a job selling scientific equipment for, optometrists and people like that. So he would go around visiting these people here and there around the city and trying to sell them some more of this equipment. But he was a devotee. He wanted to go to India, so he sold his car. And he went to India with the money, and he came back and he didn't have a car. Now he had to go to visit these people by taxi. And there in Lithuania, the taxis are like our South African taxis. You know what I mean? High aces with loud music. Boom, boom, boom. And loads of people. And sometimes he just had to take a bus like a big bus full of people, just, wall-to-wall people, and boom, boom, boom at the same time. And he asked me, how do I chant 16 rounds attentively if I'm in these types of situations? I said, you don't. You get a different job. So he got a different job. And, it's not you just get a job, like a good job just like that. But, he found a much better job. And then he was able to chant his rounds and get devotee association, etc., etc. Because not all jobs are equal. Really. There are great differences between jobs. So if your job is, you just have to give too much time to it, too much energy, and therefore it's having all these different effects, then it sounds like, a case can be made for getting another job, or at least doing some research and, looking into the subject and trying to find a more suitable job. But what I always say, I say it very often, I said it a few days ago, the best thing for a devotee is, if they have a family and they have to provide, sort of substantially provide, best thing is to get some sort of occupation where you work as little as possible, but you get as much money as possible. You laugh. I know of a small number of devotees who have done this. They have done this. And it wasn't easy, but they did it. Because if you put your mind, if you focus on something and you really try and work in that direction, then, particularly if you're a devotee, you'll get there by Krishna's grace. Sooner or later, you'll get there. It may not be easy, but you'll get there. Yes, so, due to my material commitments, you don't say what they are. But if it's working, that's what I was talking about. Yeah. You could also, another thing you could possibly do, if you're not already doing it, is do some time management. Really organize your time. And I know a number of devotees who specifically took it up, like making written schedules and really trying to work to them and figure out what's the best schedule, etc. And I think all of them came back to me and said, I found I gained an extra hour every day just by doing this. I don't know where it came from, but I found I had an extra hour. Because normally we sort of space out a bit and sort of laze around a bit and daydream a bit or whatever, and we waste time. Wasting time is not good. Chandakya Pandit made the point, and Prabhupada repeated it on a number of occasions, that time is so valuable that if you lose 1 second, you cannot get it back. Even if you have all the money in the world, you cannot get it back. Not even 1 second. What to speak of 1 minute, 1 hour, 1 day, like this. You cannot get it back. It is actually not possible. Yeah. So we should really sort of treasure our time, value our time. And if we really value our time, we'll look after it. very carefully to see that we make the most of our time. How can we consistently maintain our enthusiasm for attending namahatta, prioritizing it as one of our most significant activities? We would greatly appreciate some words of encouragement. Well, there's a few things I could say. Sort of the simple thing, as I've already said more or less in slightly different contexts, would be associate with devotees who are enthusiastic about the namahattas. Like Dal Chaitanya Prabhu, he's very enthusiastic. And some of you also, others are also enthusiastic. It's the same principle of association. You become like those you accept association from. Yeah. So, but having said that also, if you do a study, I don't know if I mentioned here, but you can get all of Prabhupada's books, all of his lectures that were recorded, all of his letters, and so on, and some other, his morning walks. You can get them all in digital format for nothing, free. You can just download them on the internet for nothing. Yeah. And then, if you get those like on your telephone, well, it's easier on a computer, but you can do it on the telephone also, or like an iPad sort of thing. You can then do searches like enthusiasm. Just see what Prabhupada said about enthusiasm. Association, see what he said about association. Good association, bad association. You can just look up these things. And, enthusiasm. You can look up so many, I'm sure, hundreds of statements Prabhupada made about enthusiasm. And you can then, extract them, download them, and keep them, and look at them every day or every week or every so often. And in this way, just remind yourself, yeah, that's right. That it is actually so valuable, so helpful spiritually to attend the namahatta and these other types of Krishna conscious activities. To associate with good devotees is so valuable. And that sort of conviction, the more you become convinced of the value of those things, the more you'll just automatically do those things. As ISKCON devotees, how can we help liberate our pets from the material realm? Please share insights along with quotes from Vedic philosophy. Well, I can say one thing to start off with. If you have, for example, a dog, at least I know about dogs and some devotees who have dogs. Dogs like to eat meat. And in fact, as a species, they're essentially carnivorous. You can try and feed them some veggies and things. Many dogs will refuse. Some may accept. But if you've got a dog and your dog is attached to meat and will not accept, your nice aloo sabji or something along those lines, your nice dal, then you know what you do? You get soya mince. Soya mince. Because I've never tried it, but they try their best to make it taste like meat, right? They really do. And I've been told by such a devotee who has a dog that he switched from meat to soya mince. And the dog didn't bat an eyelid. The dog just went for it. Oh yeah, he just went for it. Was eating soya mince, like, yeah, great meat. But it's actually soya. And then, you know what you can do? You can offer it. You can offer it. Soya is not a high-class food, but it is vegetarian and it can be offered. So yeah, you can offer. You can't offer the meat, you know, the regular dog food and all that. You can't offer that, but you can offer soya. And so now your dog, probably really happy with the soya, the dog will now be eating prasadam. Yeah. And cats, you know, I was brought up with dogs, but cats, we never had cats, so I don't know. But I think cats eat meat, isn't it?
Yes.
So try the same strategy with them. Some soya. Yeah. You may have to find, you know, what soya product will the animal appreciate. But, I mean, you know, loads of meat eaters have given up eating meat by eating soya. Many. And many devotees, actually, have given up eating meat, at least initially, by eating soya. I know personally a number of them. So yeah, like that. And this way you can help your pet. I don't know about quotes from Vedic philosophy, but this is just very practical. How does chanting help people in their daily lives? Well, you know what? See, if you chant, then your head, if you chant nicely, put it that way, if you really apply yourself to it, your mind will clear. The sort of any fog which is prone to develop in your mind, it'll sort of, you know, it'll dissolve, and it'll, at the least, it'll lessen considerably. And your mind will become clearer. Your thinking processes will be sort of like more incisive. And, you know, it'll be easier for you to understand what to do, what not to do. So when you're in your daily life and you're working, then chanting, it's just a secondary thing. Actually, the main thing is to develop your relationship with Krishna. But along with doing that, secondary things come too, and including the ability to function more clear-headedly and just sort of like more intelligently and more effectively in your working environment, or if you're a student, in your student situation. This will happen if you chant nicely. If you sort of mumble away a few mantras every now and then, here and there, don't expect too much to happen. But if every morning you get up nice and early, take a nice bath, put on clean clothes, and then really get into some good chanting, oh, you'll see. It will transform you as a person and make you a more capable person than you were, for sure. And there are just so many examples of devotees who've experienced that very vividly. What do ISKCON members believe about karma? Well, you know, in a sense, sometimes Prabhupada, when Prabhupada was asked occasionally, what do you believe in? What are your beliefs? Sometimes Prabhupada would answer, we do not believe anything. We know. Now, we may not be quite on that level, but karma, at least we should, you know, if you think about it, it's very reasonable that, You know, for example, I'm sure everyone here, probably literally everyone here, has a bank account. And I imagine some of you have 2 or maybe 3 or 4 bank accounts. And investments and, you know, all these types of financial, what do they call them? Anyway, financial arrangements. So, you deposit, like if you have a business, and it's like an active business, you may be depositing money every day and paying money every day, even a number of times every day. So in a month, if you've got like a substantial business, in a month, there may be 1,000 transactions, or at least 100. But the bank is able to calculate to the last cent how much money you have at the end of the period. Yeah, it's not like, well, you know, yeah, you got about 100 rands, you know, you got about 100,000 rands. They can tell you to the second, to the cent, exactly how much you've got, including any interest that comes your way. You know, all these considerations. Obviously, it's just an obvious thing. So it's just a reflection, in a sense, a reflection of how the laws of karma work. Because every day, everyone is doing many things which incur karma. Maybe some good and some bad, and some very bad and some, pretty bad but not too bad, and then some which are like regular, normal bad, and then some which are actually not very bad at all, and some which are quite good. All these different variations, the subtleties of it all. Yeah, just like a financial system, particularly if you have a big business, it's extremely complex. But the bank can tell you any time, practically, more or less at the drop of a hat, exactly how much money you have. Yeah. And, there was this fellow, the richest man in the world back in my early days in the 60s, J. Paul Getty. He would say that you cannot be considered to be rich if you're able to calculate how much money you have. Means it's changing every second. How much money you have is changing every second. So you can't actually calculate how much money you have. If you can still calculate how much money you have, you're not rich. Even if you're a multi-millionaire. Like they say, there's a saying, if you want to buy a Rolls Royce and you're interested in how many kilometers per litre, if it matters to you, you're too poor to buy a Rolls Royce. I don't know if you got that. Yeah, you just don't have the funds. Anyway, so our karma is there. Whatever you do, whatever action has, you could say, a value. It may be a good value to some degree, there are different levels of good, better, best, and etc. It may have a negative value. It may have a mixed value, some good and some bad. But it just seems logical, like with your financial dealings. It couldn't be more obvious that it must be calculable how much money you have. So similarly, every activity has value, so there must be some system for calculating the value. And that's karma. Yeah. What challenges did ISKCON face during its early years? Well, here, I could answer that in so many ways, but here in South Africa, we had a challenge with apartheid. We had a real challenge with apartheid. I'm sure at least all of you who are adults, you also had challenges with apartheid. But here's an interesting example. Sometimes we, people like me, Parthasarathi Maharaj, and there were a few other Vitos preaching in the Indian communities and living in the Indian communities. And on occasion, the Indian police would come and say, look, you're not really meant to be here. And we would say, oh, gee, sorry. And they would just say, oh, okay, all right then. And they wouldn't bother with it. I mean, we never had any trouble with them. But in the later stages of apartheid, we had a very nice place just outside Johannesburg in an area called Muldersdrift. It was a small holding, like about 20 acres or something like that, and just very nice. And we were doing our regular programs, and Sunday programs particularly, and just, anyone would come, and Indian people would come, white people would come, African, colored, just, at least a few from every group would come every Sunday. And one of the neighbors reported us to the police. That we were officially, would you believe, a white society, legally. We were a white society, and we owned this property in a white area. So they reported us to, the peri-urban something organization of the government. So they came, and there was a court case that we had broken the Group Areas Acts. And there was a court case in our place, in Muldersdrift, and a whole bunch of them came, like at least 10 of them, and every last one of them was an Afrikaner who didn't speak English. Anyway, they spoke enough English to communicate. So, and we were found guilty of the terrible crime of breaking the Group Areas Act, every Sunday particularly. And we were told that we would be given a month to stop it. No more non-whites. And after a month, we'd have to pay 500 rands a day fine. Yes. Which in those days, it was a significant amount of money. It's probably, something like close on $500 or $300 or $400, which would be thousands of rands now. So anyway, what to do? Well, we didn't really do anything. We had a meeting. The main group who came were Indian. We had a meeting with them. Would you mind not, what do you think? Would you mind not coming on Sunday? They did not appreciate that at all. I mean, they really didn't appreciate that one little bit. So we thought, well, what to do? We can't stop them physically. But you know what happened? In the meantime, the Group Areas Act was scrapped. Yeah, right in the middle of, we're waiting, We appealed, actually. We're waiting for the appeal to be held, to be heard. But suddenly the law just changed, literally overnight. And they never got back to us to say, okay, we're not pursuing it. We just didn't hear from them again. That was a challenge, because 500 rands a day in those days, that was real money. So that was one thing. Another thing we faced in South Africa was that we had, well, when ISKCON started here, it was all foreigners. Every single last one was a foreigner. And, gradually some local people started getting involved, but not quickly. And so we had about 25 foreigners, probably all of them white. But in those days you automatically get a 3-month visa. You could extend it for another 3 months, total of 6. Then you had to leave. You couldn't extend it further. What would we do? We would just stay. And we just stayed. That's all we did. We just didn't pursue the matter any further. And one devotee got very upset with, not me actually, I was the president in Cato Ridge, but one of the other or two of the other senior managers, and called the police. Yeah. And the police came and arrested all 25 of us. And in most countries, if you overstay your visa and you just sort of, don't care, you just carry on staying there, they send you out on the next flight back to where your passport is from. But you know what happened? Mr. Raj Bansi got into action, and he fought like mad, and he got all of us work permits, which we should never have had, because we just blatantly broke the law. But that was a challenge when we all got arrested. Sure. First of all, we all went into hiding for about a week. But then we saw we can't operate like this. We can't run the movement like this. So we just turned ourselves in. So that was a challenge. Okay, now let's see. Time check at 6. Che Baje. Kia ora, hey. What should we do? Take a few more?
Yeah, you're welcome to come next week as well.
I would have to return from India. I'm going tomorrow, yeah. To Vrindavan, to Govardhan. Anyway, after a while, it's more or less exactly 6. Should I do another 1 or 2, or should we just stop?
Maybe 1 more.
1. Is that okay?
Yes.
Ek or. Let's see. I'm trying to find, a little bit of a special thing. Well, here's a good one. It's a good one. Why do bad things happen to good people? And why do good things happen to bad people? And if you extend it further, why does anything happen to anyone? Yeah, I mean, how does it work? What is the system? Yeah. Well, why do bad things happen to good people? Because those good people, previously, they were not good. They did bad things. And then, because the modes of nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, they fluctuate. And they fluctuate in which one is the main one controlling a person. So therefore, just as a practical example, when you wake up early in the morning, have a nice bath and put on clean clothes and you chant, then you're more in the mode of goodness. Then you go to work, and work is prone to be a bit intense and a bit stressful. Often, at least many people tell me that. And so much is expected of you. You've got to sort of perform at your job. So then you may well get into the mode of passion, getting things done, going for it. This is the mode of passion. But then later in the day, after a busy day at work, in so many cases you're tired and you go home and it's like, sure, boy, what a day. So then you go into ignorance. So, it's normal for the modes to fluctuate like that. But they don't only just fluctuate like that. Sometimes they just sort of fluctuate and passion suddenly becomes more prominent, or ignorance becomes more prominent. It's unpredictable, really, how they're going to fluctuate on any particular day. I mean, these sort of very basic ideas of goodness more in the morning, passion during the working day, ignorance at night, that's, not uncommon. But you also get a lot more fluctuation than that. So therefore a person who's otherwise, or when they're in goodness, they're quite good, they're nice. But the same person, when they get into passion and ignorance, they can become aggressive and unpleasant. They can really change. I mean, just in the course of one day, what to speak of, how people change over a period of years. Yeah, so therefore, the person who is now good